I'd like to call the Planning, Zoning, and Building Committee of April 10th to order, please. Will you, minute taker, please take the roll call?
Alderman Wesley,
Here.
Alderman Police,
Here.
Alderman Luetan,
Here.
Alderman Shockey,
Here.
Alderman Cadella,
Here.
Alderman Winger, Alderman Coles,
Here.
Alderman Knight.
Here. That's everybody's here, so we will ask for a motion to approve the minutes of March 27th, 2008. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to take these out of order, if I may, and go directly to number 5. Report and recommendation on case number 06-V18, variance for outdoor storage at 363 Georgetown Square Shopping Center. The petitioner and lessee, the Warmont Corporation, requests a variance to allow for the use of outdoor storage, which is prohibited by the COWD zoning ordinance. Mr. Warmont, would you like to take the stand and tell us what you'd like to do?
What I'd like to do is to continue to do business the way we have since we've been in the town, which we've agreed to through 2 landlords. And I would like to point out that it's critical to our business that all the other similar types of businesses in the area do what we are asking for, and that is to store seasonal bag goods outside the store.
Do we have any comments or questions from the council? Alderman Wesley.
I just have one question. I believe the Planning and Zoning Board did not address the concern of the rear of the building on that property. So my question is that addressed in here, that he still could, when he gets his delivery, to leave it back there till he gets in to the front, or is that not in here? I did not see that in here.
Mr. Klinger. Clicker, I'm sorry.
It's okay. The motion from the Zoning Board of Appeals was that the storage be permitted in the parking lot and at the rear of the building shall be allowed from mid-March through mid-July.
Okay. So it is in there.
Anything else? How many storage areas do you need actually in the front parking lot?
In the parking lot right now, we use about 7, and that's the max it's been.
Okay, and I
And I
noticed
would point out that when they piled snow there, it took up to 11 spaces.
True. I
And
noticed
would
that.
like,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I would just like to point out that I think this was overlooked in the zoning board when they did the variance. They put the time constraint from March to July on the products behind the store. I would like to have that year-round also.
Is there any objection to that? No time limit at the back of the store for storage, for pellets? Alderman Police.
If we do that for one, don't you think everybody else is gonna wanna do that? This is a seasonal thing, right?
It's seasonal to the extent that we live in a seasonal part of the country. The reason we put stuff behind the store is because they want to take away what we did for 20 years in the parking lot. It's just a hedge because sometimes there's product left over. It's not a full-blown storage. There's 2 or 3 pallets that we keep there just to get them out of the sight of people on the parking lot.
But the stuff that's back there, it's mostly peat moss and topsoil. That's all the seasonal stuff, the gardening stuff.
Right. And what I'm saying is, it used to be, when we kept that stuff in the parking lot, we kept it in the 2 or 3 spaces in the parking lot in front of the store. The landlord and the building department would like to not have that in the parking lot, so we put it behind the store. That was like, this year was 4 pallets. It was topsoil that didn't sell, and it was peat moss and some mulch. The landlord has no objection to that. And part of the recommendation from the zoning board was that we get along with the landlord. That was the first caveat, I believe.
Okay. Alderman
Good night.
Knight?
Yeah, thank you. Would it be conducive to your operations to say order less, or do you have to buy in bulk? That you have it all at one time, or could you buy it in stages, or where you wouldn't need the outside storage?
It'll be conducive to our operation for Mother Nature to cooperate more, but there are times that we have to buy, okay? We don't buy, we buy to what's optimal for our checkbook and for our customers and for the season.
Okay.
Alderman Coles?
He's been in there for, how many years you been in there now? Roughly about
Be 19 in May,
19 in May. Well, I was gonna say roughly about 20 years.
yes.
You've been doing that almost 20 years that I know of, and
It was written into our lease before I even moved into the store.
I don't see why it interferes with anybody. And the stuff don't stay there very long, because I would say by the time July 4th comes, most of the stuff that's in the parking lot is gone, and so is in front of the store. So I would say it shouldn't interfere with anybody, my personal opinion.
The only complaints I heard are about being a little messy at times when the bags break and sit out there all day long. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So.
That's why I thought the
please-
landlord oversight was a good suggestion.
Okay, and then the other suggestion we might have is that the pallets not be stacked in the parking lot high enough to obscure vision for the cars, so somebody doesn't walk out behind
That's
one and get
reasonable.
hit. So with those, and the rear storage, I guess would be all year round. Well, I don't know if we do we want to keep the limitation on the months that storage out front is available? Do I have any comments on that? Alderman Wesley?
I don't see that there is a problem with that. He's been there. I have talked to several people. If you go ahead and do that, what about the grocery store that stores pallets and bales and milk crates out there all year round? It's, if the landlord's happy with it and he's working with the landlord, guys, we talk about stuff, not bring businesses out, and this would be the possibility that if he can't do this, he may just pack up and leave too. Hate to see him leave, but I don't want that to happen. But it's the same thing as a grocery store. You got bales outside. That's even busier than what he does. So I say to leave it go year round.
Anybody else? Alderman, please.
Roger, it's a question for you. As far as all the other stores and whatnot, when they have bales and whatnot, does that stuff have to be fenced in or not?
Well, it depends certainly on the location. We have other areas such as Jewel-Osco, which has their annual plant sale. Although the area isn't specifically fenced, it is within a tented structure. But oftentimes others have sidewalk sales, which don't require fencing.
Right. No, but I'm talking in the back of the building.
Back of the building,
Right.
we don't have any areas that are fenced.
So nothing's ever required as far as fencing.
I think the only area that would enter into would be possibly the storage of propane tanks. Those do have to be locked and secured in a fenced or a secure area. But other than that, no.
Okay.
I thought we had some ordinance saying that the garbage containers needed to be fenced in.
The garbage containers, yes, and that's specific to that type of operation for garbage removal and unsightliness of the area.
Okay. And I'll make a motion to grant a variance to allow for the use of outdoor storage at the Warmont Corporation at 363 Georgetown Square Shopping Center with the conditions that it be kept clean and that the pellets are not stacked high enough to obscure vision from cars. Do I have a second? Second. Any comments? Pardon me? No. No, I don't think Is there anybody here that wanted the time frame as part of the motion?
Well, I think we need to make that because if I'm mistaken, the Planning and Zoning Board gave a date, and I think we need to make that into the motion year-round.
What months would you need out
Well,
front?
year-round will be fine, because that's the way we've always done it.
What did the zoning and planning board say? What months did they say it was?
Their recommendation was mid-March through mid-July. That was for both the storage in the front, in the parking lot and behind the building. The zoning board's recommendation allowed storage on the sidewalk year-round.
Would that be sufficient?
That's why I asked if we could have it behind the store for year-round also, and that would be sufficient then.
In front of the store on the sidewalk and in the rear?
Yes.
But the parking lot would be March
to
I would think August.
July, and I would work with that.
July
would
is
work with
okay?
Yes.
Okay, I amend my motion, the seconder, go along with that? Okay. Would you call a roll on this, make sure we're all together in it?
Alderman Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Police?
Yes.
Alderman Luetan?
Yes.
Alderman Shockey?
Yes.
Alderman Cadella?
No.
Alderman Winger?
Yes.
Alderman Coles?
Yes.
Alderman Knight?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-2.
Thank you.
Next item is a report and recommendation in case number 08-TA2, the COWD text amendment, ZBA jurisdiction in the city of Wooddale as petitioner requests a zoning code text amendment to amend the jurisdiction of the zoning board of appeals. Does everybody understand that one? We had given the zoning board of appeals the right to extend by 20%, I believe. Am I correct, Mr. Clicker?
What it was the code read, or reads currently, that a variation which is not in excess of 20% of height, setback, or whatever, can have a final jurisdiction decision by the zoning board of appeals. That was not the past practices of the city council and the zoning board. In fact, the vast majority, if not all, of the zoning board recommendations were purely that. They were recommendations and sent to this committee for review. This text amendment purely brings the code in line with practice, and that we remove the final jurisdiction of the zoning board.
And what was the zoning board's recommendation on this?
The recommendation was for approval. The vote was a 5-1 vote.
Okay, and staff, like to get your recommendation?
I believe, my personal opinion on it is that all variations do require, or should have a variation, the legal document to back it up, with the zoning board having the final jurisdiction, not saying in any way, shape, or form that their recommendations are improper or invalid, but that there's no legal document created with that recommendation. So in my personal opinion, the ordinance is a much better way to do it.
As it was before?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
Does this mean that,
Alderman Lewitton?
does it, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. Does this mean that if you have a variation of up to 20%, you still have to come to council,
Yes.
to committee? But before, wasn't it staff could make the decision? Up to 20%?
No, not until we changed the ordinance just end of last year.
Well,
Has never had the, what would be called an administrative variation approval process, where if there is no neighbor objections, we can send an ordinance directly, or a variation directly to the council foregoing the zoning board hearing. That's one aspect that we're examining as part of our zoning code rewrite, but it is not anything that is currently in our regulations.
Are we going down to 0%? Has to go to committee?
Any variation at this point with this variation, with this text amendment, would come in front of the council for final approval.
That's until the new zoning code is brought forward, and I think we'll have some leeway in that, but not 20%. 20%, I think, is and everybody believes is excessive.
I understand. I just don't want everything coming to council. There's certainly things that could be decided at at staff's level. Otherwise, every single thing that's one iota difference will come here.
Well, that'll be taken up with the consultant and staff. If somebody needs an inch or 2 inches or something like that, that'll be in the new zoning code.
Good.
Any other comments? And I'll make a motion, or I'll ask for a motion to amend the COWD text amendment, the ZBA jurisdiction in the city of Wooddale is requesting a zoning code text amendment to amend the jurisdiction of the zoning board of appeals. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You didn't make the motion, you says, I'm asked.
I'll make the motion, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And we had a second. Motion carries. Next item, report recommendation on the Planning Commission, Oak Manor subdivision, request at 5 North 101 and 5 North 125 Wooddale Road. The petitioner and owner, Klein Homes, request approval of 9-lot subdivision for the construction and use of 9 single-family detached homes under the R1 single-family zoning district. Said 9-lot subdivision will comply with all R1 zoning district standards. Mr. Zubik, would you like to bring us up to date on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Marshall Subach, S-U-B-A-C-H. I'm the attorney on behalf of the petitioner, Scott Klein and Klein Homes. Mr. Klein is with me tonight. Unfortunately, our engineer, Alex Ho, could not be here. His wife is expecting their second or third child, so he is at home or at the hospital as we speak. We're here for approval of the Oak Manor subdivision. The property is commonly known as 5N101 and 5N125 Wooddale Road. Property is currently unincorporated DuPage County. We're no longer looking for the rezoning of the property upon annexation. Upon annexation, we'll accept the R1 zoning that comes with any annexation. Subdivision has 9 buildable lots for 9 single-family homes with 2 lots for stormwater detention. All of the lots meet the R1 requirements, which is 100 feet of frontage, and each of the lots is over 15,000 square feet. There are no variances that are being requested. There will be almost 2 acre-feet of storage detention on the property. The subdivision will meet all the stormwater requirements. There are going to be inlets located along the rear of the property, as well as along the south side of the property that will take the water in and then direct it to the 2 detention basins. So then there will be a controlled release from those detention basins to the, there's a culvert on Wooddale Road. I know there's been previously some problems with stormwater along Cedar Avenue because part of this property actually would run to Cedar Avenue, then to Iroquois, then to Montclair. Now with the way this property will be regraded, the property should drain all to the front, according to the engineer, into these 2 detention basins, and they'll have a controlled release of the stormwater. Some of the residents that are across the street, they're actually, some are incorporated in Wooddale, some are unincorporated. Said that right now this property does create quite a bit of runoff onto their property. I think with the 2 detention basins that is now upstream from them, those problems should be resolved. The petitioner will set up a homeowners association that will maintain the detention basins. The subdivision has a full 66-foot right-of-way and a full cul-de-sac with the required turning radius. Again, the street will be a dedicated street, but the detention basins will stay as part of the association. There'll be sidewalks installed on both sides of the property. On the north side of the property, there'll be a 20-foot landscaping buffer between the Wooddale Road and the detention basin. My client will fully comply with the Wooddale tree ordinance. With the reduced density, there should be less tree loss, but will fully comply with the ordinance. There's previously requested the zoning board that they wanted the property here is unincorporated. They wanted us to stub those properties so that if there is future development, which we may or may not happen, they could tap into the existing water and sewer. My client has no objection to that, so long as there's a recapture as part of the annexation agreement, that he gets to recapture the cost for that. I think the city council in the past has done an inactive special service area, just in case the association ever goes defunct or says we're not gonna pay for the detention basins. The city will have an automatic way to place on the homeowner's tax bill an amount to cover the maintenance. So the inactive special service area is also agreeable if that's what the council would like, as we've done in the past. Finally, there was a request for ornamental lighting of the prairie style. My client is in agreement with that also. Otherwise, we think it will be now, hopefully satisfy everybody and truly be the gateway into the city of Wooddale.
Any idea how many lights, those ornamental lights?
Yeah, whatever staff requires as far as, you know, the standard distance between them.
Is Mr. Nowak, is there, or Mr. Clicker, is there a standard requirement?
It would be based on the illumination level that the lights give off. That'll be reviewed under final engineering. We'll make sure that the illumination levels are proper.
Good. Any questions, comments? None. Alderman Cadella.
If it's appropriate now, I'd like to make comment on an item that I'm going to want to see in the motion, and that is in regards to a stipulation regarding the tree preservation and when not possible, replanting. I know at minimum, we require everybody to follow the existing tree preservation ordinance. I'm asking if the council or the committee here would be willing to entertain the two following line items. First, the replanting of a at least 2-inch caliber tree for every 4 inches of existing tree caliber removed, of the same species removed, which is typically the bur oak, white oak, swamp oak, I think you've gotten there, and shagbark hickory. And second, that any mature trees that die over a period of X number of years, perhaps 4 or 5, are also taken into consideration and replanted, as the disruption of the soil is likely going to cause future mortality in the future. Trees that you hope to save might not make it. So I've seen that happen in a lot of subdivisions, and it's up to the homeowner then to take them down, and they don't necessarily replant them. So in an effort to bring the density back up, you know, to close to where it is, perhaps not in our lifetimes, but for the future, those are the requests I would make if the council up here would so choose to agree with that.
You're saying to replace a 2-inch tree for every 4 inches of tree taken out?
That is what I'm saying, and that may actually be relaxed from our tree ordinance, because I believe we plant inch per inch, which, considering the density of trees in there, if I'm right on how that ordinance is written, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think with the number of trees in there, the number of trees that might be removed, my request to plant shade trees in place might be a little too dense, might raise the mortality of the new tree rate, just because they're going to crowd each other out. So basically, I'm asking for 2 inches for every 4 inches.
And how about parkway trees? Is there room for them? I don't know.
It would probably depend on what trees are able to remain throughout the construction. I'd like to think that the parkway is far enough from the homes, and maybe some of the trees are going to be far enough from the road that they might be saved, but.
Alderman Wesley.
In a way, it is a good idea, but the one that I'm not too sure on is, you're saying if the tree dies within 4 years, he's responsible for replacing it? Is that the?
That's one of the two things I'm asking for.
No, I'll tell you that right now. Why should, if that house is built and people move in and he's closed on it, why should it be the builder's responsibility to replace that tree? I mean, let's face it, I don't think that should be the builder's responsibility if he sells it. I mean, you're holding him in arms for 4 years, knowing if a tree dies.
Yeah, my only response is that it's likely that a 200-year-old oak tree is going to die, or a 100-year-old oak tree is going to die after construction, and it probably wouldn't have on its own anyway. Like I said, if the council agrees with that, I mean, It's likely that any trees that die, mature trees that die within 5 years of construction are gonna die from the construction and from the root disruption.
Mr. Clicker, Mr. Clicker, can you tell us for the parkway trees, what is the guarantee when we have them put in? Is it 1 year or 2 years? Would 2 years be sufficient, do you think? So it's the same as the parkway trees?
Well, let me
Sounds
just,
more reasonable, perhaps.
well, let me just clarify. I'm not talking about the new trees he plants. I'm talking about the existing trees that may die, that are not cut down, but may die anyway from the construction and the regrading.
I'm not sure how we would follow up on that. Is there, ask staff if there's a way to follow up after 4 years or 5 years?
I suppose we could do something through holding a letter of credit, but that would be quite extensive and burdensome to do.
Yeah, go along with the 2 years, perhaps. And 2 inches for 4 inches of trees taken out.
We respectfully cannot agree to that. You know, the tree ordinance, preservation ordinance, it is what it is. If the committee wants to revise that, but to change the rules midstream, with all due respect, I think is beyond your authority as a municipality. We will comply with the tree ordinance. Right now, this property is unincorporated and not subject to any tree ordinances. We've seen other unincorporated pieces along 3rd Avenue or Oak Meadows Drive now, in 83, that all of a sudden, all the trees were cut down, and that was because you lost the control, and that was unincorporated. My client wants to preserve as many of the trees as he can, but a 2 for 4 makes the project, the project is always already stripped down to the bare minimums as far as density. Quite honestly, he doesn't even know if it's going to be viable financially. And then for an enforcement issue, 5 years down the road, imagine the proof problems with when a tree dies. Of course, the homeowner's going to say, well, it must have been disrupted, but we have gypsy moths in Wooddale. We have...
Well, we cut that from 5 to 2 already, so.
I understand, but still, the proof problem, we can't stay involved with this, and it's not part of your ordinance, and respectfully, I think you're overstepping what you can do as a municipality. We'll comply with the tree ordinance. We're asking for nothing more than an annexation and a 9-lot subdivision that complies with the R1 regulations. So,
What does the
in
tree
fact,
or-
the
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
the lighting is actually requested as beyond, but we've agreed to that ornamental lighting. He'll comply with the tree ordinance, but to go above and beyond, I just don't think it's fair, and my client can't agree to it.
What does the tree ordinance say exactly now?
Well, don't know it word for word off the top of my head, but basically it is any tree that is outside of 5 foot outside the buildable envelope or the footprint of the house has to be maintained. If it does die due to construction, it's replaced at a I believe a 1 to 2 ratio. I believe I'm not 100% certain on that, but there's no requirement to replace any of the trees that are taken out due to the footprint of construction.
Alderman Cadella.
Would your client be willing to entertain following the tree preservation plan or ordinance as written, with the one exception that he only replants species that he removes? Can we keep it oak and shagbark hickory as it is probably 80 or 90% in there now? Is that something we think about?
To replace that with swamp oaks, red oaks, and white oaks, no. Pin oaks are a possibility, but pin oaks don't do that well as far as being replaced. So I would suggest that the city has a suggested list of trees, and I can comply with that list. But to replace a shagbark hickory, I'm not even sure you can get a shagbark hickory at a nursery, and I don't really know what price that would be. The nurseries have trees that are resistant to certain diseases and for this climate, but to try and replace the swamp oak, pin oaks, and white oaks are very difficult.
Anybody else? Alderman Lewitton.
Gary, what kind of trees have we been putting down in front of the right-of-ways?
We've actually completely revamped that list, and that will be coming back to council actually next week as part of the Parkway Tree Ordinance for approval. Our revamped list, off the top of my head, I think is somewhere between 20 to 30 different species of trees that we now allow.
To continue the question, on the Parkway, is this land considered Parkway, where he's building, whatever the name of the street's going to be? Is that considered Parkway?
The actual dedicated right-of-way would be considered the Parkway. All the private lots or private properties would not be considered, as part of the Parkway Tree Ordinance.
What about I'm thinking of the land that's between the street and, I don't know, what's this line called? The 25-foot line.
The building setback line?
Yeah, that's the Parkway, isn't it?
The building setback line is actually 25 feet beyond the right-of-way then. So actually that 25 feet is private property and
It's not public parkway?
No, we're only up that 66-foot right-of-way as our public right-of-way.
Okay, on the area that is public, how many trees could fit in there?
How many trees can fit in there?
Would be permitted to grow healthy in there?
Well, again, in our Parkway tree list, or our approved tree list, it depends on the species of trees. Certain trees you have to plant, say, 20 to 30 feet apart. Other trees you want to plant 40 to 50 feet apart, depending on the mature size of the trees. So,
And we will be doing this program in 2008 to put in trees, like we did in 2007?
yeah, and that's a completely separate program from this development.
Well, not completely, because if he has land that's eligible for free trees, he has a right, well, I guess the people have a right, but it looks like you could put some trees in there, and I'm going to propose that the builder, and it's only by request.
Well, as a developer and part of the subdivision code, he'll be required to install parkway trees as part of his, if he sells off a lot to a builder, the builder will be required to put parkway trees. So parkway trees are required as part of the development. Like the parkway tree program that we offer is really for existing and established residents. But as a developer, he's the one who is responsible for the cost of those parkway trees.
So the following year, when he's gone, then those people would be eligible for trees under the parkway program.
Yes, at some point in the future, they become just, like any other resident, and they would then be eligible for parkway trees.
Would Alderman Cadallo be adverse or accept the idea that since it's by request, that those people be, by the ordinance we make, be required to replace any trees with the city's parkway tree program that the city pays for, which has been our practice for several years now? Well, at least you get you some trees in there.
So you're saying the city pays?
Only where the city has always been paying.
I don't think the city always pays on new subdivisions, though.
No, they don't. He just said that.
Right.
He said, we're talking about down the road. After he's gone, even the following year, if a tree died, a tree will have died, then that person at that property area or that homeowners association would have the right to ask for a tree under the program that Gary's been monitoring, but it's by request. So you could change that and say that they would be obligated to make the request. I mean, we're only talking a few trees, but every tree is another part of the canopy.
Well, I appreciate your effort in trying to make something work, but let's I think the point of it is, as it relates to my original request, is I was asking for property wide, and this really only manages the trees about approximately 20 feet on either side of the road. So, while I agree, every tree counts and matters for canopy, it's not enough to appease what I was asking for. And
I didn't think it did, but I wanted to, if if you have something you see and you want and it's 20 units and you can get 2 units for free, then you're only negotiating the other 18. So I just would like to lower the gap between what you want and what can be gotten.
Well, let's see if we got this straight now. We're talking about the private property trees, not parkway trees.
Yeah, the part of these that would go here. That's why I said we agreed it's only a small.
Along Wooddale Road, Alderman Lewitton is talking about, not along the, whatever, the Oak Manors Road, but along Wooddale Road in front of the north pond and in front of the, between the sidewalk and,
Along Wooddale Road, both, well, there's actually a landscaping easement on the north side of the proposed road. On
right?
the south side of the proposed road, that lot limit just goes to the county right-of-way. So they would be treated just like corner lots. And after the developer has put in trees, after the warranty period has expired, then at some point in the future, should a tree die or should a resident request an additional tree, they would do so under the normal premise of the Parkway Tree Program.
That's right. They would request. That's where I beg to make the change. That since Alderman Cadala wants that the trees should exist there, that they don't have that option, that they must replace it. They can't love open space. I'm trying to make compromise, not to push something.
Mr. Mayor, and you have a comment?
I think we're getting off issue. What you have before you is approval of a 9-lot subdivision. That subdivision as proposed is totally conforming. He is not asking for any variance, he's not asking for any special use, he's not asking for any differences from the code. Petitioner is correct, he gets to play by the rules of the game as they exist. You do not have the right to ask for any additional conditions because he's not asking for any variances. So, that being said, the issue before you is do you or do you not approve the 9-lot subdivision? Technically, we do not have the right to ask him for the prairie-style lighting. If he agrees to that because that's going to help him market his properties, that's fine, but technically, we can't require that as part of the approval either. He gets to apply by the existing tree ordinance as it exists, rightly or wrong, good or bad. That's what applies because that's the law as of the day he filed the application.
Okay, as long as you're talking about the recapture agreement, is that made part of the ordinance? That he's,
What recapture on what?
on the other property for the future?
That's appropriate.
Okay. Any other questions? Alderman Wesley.
Mr. Mayor, I would have to disagree with you because there may be a situation, since this property is not annexed into our property right now, if this is passed